Part 1. The Nuclear Paradox. You've seen the footage. Mushroom clouds. Archive clips from 1945. Politicians standing at podiums, talking about deterrence like it's just another policy tool. But here's the uncomfortable part. 9 countries on Earth have nuclear weapons. The United States, Russia, China, France, the UK, India, Pakistan, North Korea, Israel, unofficially. Thousands of warheads, some as small as 10 kilotons, some as large as 1.2 megatons, about 80 times Hiroshima. And yet, since August 9th, 1945, nothing, not one has been used in war. Not even once. Why? Because here's the paradox. The most powerful weapon ever created is the one no one dares to use. Part 2. Where it all began. Let's start with the obvious. Hiroshima. August 6, 1945. A uranium bomb called Little Boy. Yield. 15 kilotons. In 43 seconds, about 70,000 people were dead. 3 days later, Nagasaki. A plutonium bomb. Fat Man. Slightly bigger. Roughly 20 kilotons. By the end of 1945, over 200,000 people had died from the 2 bombs. Burns, radiation sickness, collapsing infrastructure. That's where nuclear weapons began. But that's not where the story ends, because everything that came after made those bombs look small. Part 3. Escalation to unimaginable power. In 1961, the Soviet Union detonated the largest nuclear weapon ever built, T-Atomva. Yield. 50 megatons. That's 3,300 times more powerful than Hiroshima. The shockwaves circled the Earth 3 times. Windows shattered 900 kilometers away. The fireball alone was 8 kilometers wide. If that weapon had been dropped on a city, there wouldn't be a city. There wouldn't even be ruins. Just absence. So now imagine this. Countries today don't have one bomb. They have hundreds, sometimes thousands. And yet, they don't use them. Which brings us to the real question. Not what nuclear weapons do, but why they're never used. Part 4. The system of deterrence. Let's walk through this like a system, because it is one. And the first piece is something called second strike capability. Sounds technical. It's not. It just means this. Even if you hit me first, I can still hit you back. That's it. And that changes everything. Take the United States. It has about 400 Minuteman III intercontinental ballistic missiles, ICBMs, stored in underground silos across states like Montana and North Dakota. Each one can travel over 13,000 kilometers. Each one carries a nuclear warhead. Flight time, about 30 minutes. But here's the real insurance policy. Submarines, Ohio-class nuclear submarines. Each one carries 20 Trident II missiles. Each missile can carry multiple warheads up to 8. And they're always moving. Silent, hidden, impossible to track completely. Even if you wiped out every missile silo, every airbase, those submarines are still out there, waiting. Part 5. Mutually assured destruction. This is called the nuclear triad. Land-based missiles, submarine-launched missiles, strategic bombers like the B-2 Spirit. 3 separate ways to deliver nuclear weapons. Why 3? Redundancy. Because if even one survives, retaliation is guaranteed. And this leads to the most important concept in modern nuclear strategy, mutually assured destruction, or a MAD. Yes, that's actually what it's called. MAD means this. If you launch a nuclear attack, you don't win. You die too. Not metaphorically. Literally. Because the other side, assuming they have second strike capability, will respond. And the response will destroy you. Not just your military, your cities, your infrastructure, your economy, your future. Gone. Part 6. How close it gets. Let me give you a scenario. It's 2:17 a.m. Early warning systems detect incoming missiles. A country has maybe 10 to 15 minutes to decide, retaliate, or risk being destroyed without response. That decision is made by a handful of people, sometimes just one. The president, the prime minister, one human being. No pressure. In 1983, this almost happened. A Soviet officer named Stanislav Petrov was on duty. The system reported that 5 US missiles had been launched. Protocol said, report it immediately. Prepare for retaliation. But Petrov hesitated. 5 missiles didn't make sense. A real US strike would involve hundreds. So he waited. Turns out it was a false alarm. Sunlight reflecting off clouds. If Petrov had followed protocol, we might not be here. That's how close it gets. Part 7. Real-world flashpoints. Now take a different case. India and Pakistan, both nuclear-armed, both have fought multiple wars, 1947, 1965, 1971, estimated arsenals around 160 warheads each. Range of missiles, up to 5,000 kilometers, close enough to hit every major city on the other side. And yet, no nuclear exchange. Even during Kargil, when fighting was intense, casualties mounting, they stopped. Why? Because escalation means annihilation, not victory. Now look at North Korea. Estimated 20 to 60 nuclear warheads. Missiles like the Hwasong-15 range over 13,000 kilometers. Potentially able to reach the continental United States. And they test them, they parade them, they talk about them constantly. But use them? No, because the moment they do, they trigger a response they cannot survive. Part 8. The true cost. This is the core truth. Nuclear weapons aren't battlefield tools. They were political weapons. They exist to prevent war by making war unthinkable. That's deterrence. And it works. Mostly. Because everyone understands the cost. Even if they never say it out loud. Here's another layer. Cost. A modern nuclear warhead might cost between $20 million to $50 million, depending on design and maintenance. But that's not the real cost. The real cost is what comes after. Rebuilding a destroyed city, hundreds of billions, long-term radiation damage, decades, economic collapse, generational. So even if you win militarily, you lose everything else. Part 9. Fallout and global consequences. And then there's something even worse. Fallout. Not just the explosion, but the radiation that spreads. Wind patterns carry radioactive particles. Hundreds, sometimes thousands of kilometers. You bomb one city, you contaminate entire regions. Maybe your own allies, maybe even your own country. There are no clean nuclear wars. None. And then, nuclear winter. This is still debated, but here's the basic idea. Multiple nuclear explosions ignite massive fires. Those fires send soot into the upper atmosphere. That soot blocks sunlight. Global temperatures drop, crops fail, famine spreads. Some models suggest that even a limited nuclear war, say 100 bombs, could reduce global temperatures by 1 to 2 degrees Celsius. That doesn't sound like much. It is. That's enough to disrupt food production worldwide. Millions, maybe billions. Part 10. Why they hold back. So now you see the layers. It's not just big explosion. It's retaliation. It's collapse. It's long-term damage that doesn't stop at borders. And this is why countries hesitate. Not because they're weak, but because they understand the math. Use it and everything breaks. Even during the Cold War, arguably the most dangerous period in human history, the US and Soviet Union never used nuclear weapons against each other. At their peak, they had over 60,000 warheads combined, enough to destroy the planet multiple times over. And yet, they held back. But because both sides knew, the moment one launches, it's over. Part 11. The dangerous shift. But here's where it gets interesting. Because not all nuclear powers think the same way. Some have different doctrines, different thresholds, different red lines, and some might actually consider using them under specific conditions. That's where things stop being theoretical and start becoming dangerous. Very dangerous, because the next category of nuclear thinking, it's not about preventing war. It's about fighting one, and that's where the rules begin to blur. Part 1. Tactical nuclear reality. Now we step into the gray zone, because not all nuclear weapons are built to erase cities. Some are designed to fight wars. They're called tactical nuclear weapons. Lower yield, smaller range, supposedly more usable. That word alone should make you uncomfortable. Usable. Part 2. The B-61 bomb. Take the American B-61 bomb. First introduced in 1968, still in service today. Modernized into the B-61-12 variant. Yield, adjustable, anywhere from 0.3 kilotons up to about 50 kilotons. That's right. You can dial it. Drop it from a fighter jet like an F-35 Lightning II or F-16 Fighting Falcon, and it can hit with precision guidance within about 30 meters of target. The idea is simple. Hit military targets, air bases, tank formations, command centers. Limit civilian damage, in theory. Part 3. Russia's tactical arsenal. Russia has its own version, the 9K-720 Iskander missile system. Range, about 500 kilometers. Speed, up to Mach 6 times the speed of sound. Warhead, can be conventional or nuclear. Estimated yield, 5 to 50 kilotons. And here's the unsettling part. Russia is believed to have around 1,900 tactical nuclear warheads, the largest stockpile in the world, according to estimates. That's not for deterrence alone, that's for options. Part 4. Escalate to de-escalate. This is where doctrine comes in. Military doctrine just means the official playbook. When do you fight? How do you fight? Russia has a concept often described as escalate to de-escalate. Translation in plain English: use a small nuclear weapon early to scare the enemy into backing down. Sound insane? It kind of is, but it's been debated seriously. Because if your opponent believes you might actually do it, they hesitate, and hesitation can decide wars. Part 5. NATO position. NATO has its own approach, a military alliance of over 30 countries. It still maintains nuclear weapons in Europe, B-61 bombs stationed in countries like Germany, Belgium, Italy, but their doctrine is more restrained. Nuclear weapons are last resort. Not first move. Not second move. Last it. But here's the problem. Every side says that, until they don't. Part 6. India versus Pakistan. Now let's go back to South Asia. India and Pakistan. Two countries, shared border, long history of conflict, and nuclear weapons sitting right on top of that tension. India's doctrine is officially no first use, meaning they won't launch nuclear weapons unless attacked first. Pakistan? No such promise. Why? Because Pakistan sees itself as conventionally weaker, fewer tanks, fewer aircraft, smaller economy. So nuclear weapons become an equalizer, a threat to stop a larger invasion. Part 7. The Nazar missile. Take Pakistan's Nazar missile. Range, about 70 kilometers. Very short, very specific. It's designed to hit invading forces on Pakistani soil. Yield, low, tactical. The message is clear. If you cross this line, we use this. Not on your cities, on your troops. That's a very different kind of nuclear thinking, and a very dangerous one. Because once a nuclear weapon is used, even a small one, the line is broken. Part 8. Escalation ladder. This is what strategists call the escalation ladder. Imagine a staircase. At the bottom, conventional war guns, tanks, missiles. Higher up, cyber attacks, economic warfare. Near the top, tactical nuclear weapons. At the very top, full strategic nuclear exchange. Once you step onto that nuclear rung, climbing down is because the other side now has to respond. Not responding looks weak. Responding risks everything. That's the trap. Part 9. A soldier's perspective. Let me introduce someone. Arjun, 27, Indian Army artillery officer. In a hypothetical but very real scenario, tensions escalate at the border. Orders come down. Prepare for counterstrike. He knows what that means. Not nuclear yet, but close. His unit has intelligence that Pakistani Nazar systems are active, mobile launchers. Hard to track. If those fire, his position might be the target. He's not thinking about geopolitics. He's thinking about survival. Part 10. If it happens, now imagine the unthinkable happens. A tactical nuclear weapon is used. Small yield, maybe 5 kilotons. On a military formation. Thousands dead. Radiation spreading. Global headlines explode. Does India respond with another tactical strike? Or escalate further? Does Pakistan double down? Or pull back? There is no clear answer. That's why it's never happened. Not because it can't, but because no one knows how it ends. Part 11. Power projection. Now shift perspective again. Think about power projection. That's just a fancy way of saying how far a country can project force. The United States can deploy forces almost anywhere on Earth. Carrier strike groups, air bases, alliances. So why would it use nuclear weapons? It usually doesn't need to. Conventional weapons are often enough. Precision-guided bombs, cruise missiles, cheaper politically, less catastrophic, cleaner, in a relative sense. So nuclear weapons become unnecessary in most scenarios. Part 12. China's strategy. China is different. Estimated 400 to 500 nuclear warheads as of 2025. Missiles like the DF-41, range over 12,000 kilometers, can carry multiple warheads. China also maintains a no first-use policy. But here's the nuance. They're rapidly expanding their arsenal, building new missile silos, over 300 identified since 2021. Why? Not to fight a nuclear war, but to ensure they can survive one. Second strike capability again, same logic, different scale. Part 13. The real reason, and now we hit the turning point, the aha moment. Most people think nuclear weapons prevent war because they're powerful. That's not the real reason. The real reason is economics. Stay with me. Part 14. The economics of war. A modern main battle tank like the Russian T-90 costs about $4.5 million. An anti-tank drone? Sometimes $500, even less. In Ukraine, small drones have destroyed tanks, artillery, even air defense systems. Cheap kills expensive. Every time. Now scale that logic up. A nuclear warhead might cost $30 million, but the damage it causes? Hundreds of billions, trillions even. And retaliation multiplies that cost. So the equation looks like this. Use one weapon, lose everything. That's not strategy. That's suicide. The math is broken. Part 15. Psychological weapons. This is why nuclear weapons sit in silos, on submarines, in storage bunkers, maintained, upgraded, but not used, because their real function is psychological. They shape behavior, they limit options, they force caution, even in moments of extreme tension. Part 16. Near miss. And yet, the risk never disappears. Because systems fail, humans make mistakes, signals get misinterpreted. In 1995, Russia almost launched a nuclear response to a Norwegian scientific rocket. They thought it might be a missile. For a few minutes, the nuclear briefcase was open. Decision time. Then, they realized the mistake, stood down. Again, that close. Part 17. Final truth. So why don't countries use nuclear weapons? Because they work too well. Because they end wars by ending everything. Because once you cross that line, there's no guarantee of control, no guarantee of victory, no guarantee of survival. Only escalation, only consequences. Part 18. The last line, and that's the final truth. Nuclear weapons aren't peacekeepers. They're hostages. Every country that has them is holding the world at gunpoint, including themselves. No one wants to pull the trigger because everyone knows what happens next.